Wow. Wow.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be unboxing the Arrtx acrylic landscape markers. They come in a pack of 90 brush tip markers with a diverse range of colors. They're placed in these small square grooves that are connected by 3 rows, so you can separate it from the pack if you'd like. This is how the marker looks like. The design is very clean and simple, with the color code on the top of the cap. And the brush tip is nice and sharp, which is perfect for making small details. You also don't have to shake or pump the markers, you can just open the marker and start coloring. Before I swatched the markers, I wanted to use the sticker sheet of color codes that was provided. I know the marker itself already has the code, but I thought it'd be fun to put them on.
Good job, Kylie. You're doing amazing, sweetie.
Now I'm gonna swatch all 90 colors. This was really helpful for me because it let me see the actual color and reference it as I draw. There was a slight color difference, but that's only since acrylic usually dries darker than it actually is. So I really recommend swatching the colors before you use them in an actual drawing. My first impression is that they are so opaque and flow well on the page. I really like how these colors turned out. I like the range of warm and cool colors. Now I want to test out some techniques that I can use with the markers. I already tried out the different line weights I can achieve with the brush tips, and I'm impressed because I can go super detailed and I can also cover bigger areas at the same time. Now I'm going to try blending 2 colors together, and I basically put the lighter color down before I put the darker color, and I used the lighter one to blend it while it was still wet. I also used my finger to dab on it a little, and I think it created this really seamless transition. I also wipe off the brush after I blend them because of the excess colors that it picks up. I think it looks really nice, but for this next test, I want to try out some water.
Hello, how are you? I am under the water.
To see how it would react and blend with it. So when I first started out with this green, I had no idea what I was doing, and I think the darker green dried a little before I put the water on, so that's why it had this really splotchy look. But I realized that if you wet the paper, add the color on, and then use a wet paintbrush to blend it, it softens it really well. So I think the technique for this is to wet the paper before you do any blending on it. That way the paint doesn't dry out as quickly and you can actually blend it with the other colors. I was also curious to experiment it on a different colored paper, and I really like how these colors were able to pop on the page. But one thing I'd say is that for the lighter colors like this white or peach color, I would do 2 to 3 layers on it because it was a little bit transparent when I first applied it, but I think that's normal with pretty light colors. Okay guys, we are finally ready to begin sketching, and I'm just doing a simple sketch with my pink color pencil. So for this first portrait, I'm drawing a girl. I used a reference picture for the pose and just freehanded the face. I haven't drawn since my last upload, so I'm glad to be back in drawing. Now I'm drawing the sketch for another portrait, which is going to be a little smaller. I like to plan out my sketchbook spread by sketching everything at once. That way, I'll know the placement of everything, and I won't have to scavenge Pinterest for 2 hours trying to find what to draw next. She's gonna have these cute side swept bangs and straight hair. I already love how she's turning out, especially with the piercings I added. I saw a Tamagotchi on Pinterest and really wanted to draw it. They look so cute and colorful, and I feel like it just fits with the vibe I'm gonna go for. Now for the star of the show, the markers. I started by putting down a layer of water for where the shadow areas are gonna be. Then I used a light brown shade to color in the shadows, using a wet paintbrush to blend out the edges. Okay, stay with me here guys, we will fix this. We just have to trust the process. I feel like I added a little bit too much water when I applied her skin color, which is why you can see these wrinkles on my paper. But that's because I'm not using watercolor paper and it will dry flat anyways, so I'm not too worried about the paper buckling right now. I'm gonna be honest, I was really scared because the colors were getting more and more saturated. But then I remembered, these are literally acrylic markers. You can cover them up if you mess up. So I just continued on with the shadow color, blending other colors together and using a wet paintbrush to soften it. The highlights were really fun to do. It was so satisfying how I was able to put one stroke and it instantly made the drawing come to life. I didn't want to focus too much on the face and possibly overwork it, so I moved on to the Tamagotchi. It was more easier for me to work on this than a portrait because it was mostly just a bunch of tiny colors put together without needing much blending. The markers worked really well for this. I was able to achieve really thin line work with the brush tip. Moving on to the next portrait, I'm starting by blocking out the shadow colors again. But I honestly feel like I should have done a layer of the skin tone first and then do the shadows on top, because it was a little difficult to blend with the color that I already dried. You can see me fight against the paper. It was either I put too much or too little water. I'm gonna get back to this. I just wanted to work on the other portrait again. I'm using a color pencil to create some softer details. I love when it feels like I'm applying makeup on my drawings. Now I'm just applying more colors, trying to blend out the values, but I didn't really like how saturated the shadows were before, so I just covered it up with a grayish brown. I'm so glad I was able to do this because there's no undo button in traditional art. You just gotta embrace what you already did. For her hair, I went with a bubblegum pink because I wanted the spread to be really colorful yet soft, and also because as I was drawing this, I suddenly had the inclination to dye my hair. What if I just show up one day looking like Rainbow Dash? Anyways, I tried a new technique for the hair and the rest of the spread. So instead of blocking out the shadow colors like I did before, I'm putting down a layer of the base color first. I think it was much easier for me to work from light to dark rather than dark to light, because I was able to see and layer the colors in relation to one another, but that's just my preference. I also really like adding blues on my shadows, and the markers did this so perfectly. So it wasn't before I stepped back and looked at my drawing and realized that this color combo was quite messy. I didn't like how the two hair colors were practically the same value. There's no contrast between them. So she's going blonde. I used a few layers to fully cover it, so you don't have to worry if the first layer isn't as opaque. It usually takes 2 to 3 layers. Now I'm coloring her shirt, complementing it with the pink hair. Cause for this spread, I want the color palette to be pink, blue, purple, and yellow. And the bright orange color from before just didn't match it. I'm adding a few sparkles using a baby blue color. They're going to be 3D, but I'm not going to add too many shadows because I want some variation in the depth of the drawing. These are just lighter accent details. I also love these vector flourish style designs, so I'm adding them in using the same color. They just make the drawing so much cuter. You can also add any doodle on it and it'll still look cute, like music notes, stars, and hearts. Since this spread was giving pastel Y2K, I thought a thought bubble would look nice.
A person who thinks all the time.
I just put some doodles inside to complement with the sparkles. I'm working on the beads of the Tamagotchi now, and I'm starting with brown first because I want some of the color to show through, kind of like an underpainting. It makes the colors look more interesting so that when I add the actual colors on, it'll make it stand out like this. Now I'm finishing up some of the shading, adding in more blues. This literally reminds me of digital art. I'm just adding layers in real life and adjusting the opacity using my paintbrush. Going in with my colored pencil, I wanted the Tamagotchi to have a little more shading and have a little bit of line art to it. You know me, I'll always have to have some stickers in my spread. I have a few here and I'm gonna put this cute yellow star on. Just look at his face.
So cute!
So this is the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. These acrylic markers were so fun to use. They'll be linked in the description below, so definitely check them out. See you all next time.
Bye!